Did your mind immediately go to, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to say a speech?
When he actually did just ask me like, hey, do you want to be my best man? I was just overjoyed that he thought of me.
How did you manage to remember the entire speech without a piece of paper?
The MC came up to me and he's like, well, you're going first, you're up in 15 minutes. That's when like the nerves started to settle in, where I was like, okay, just gotta breathe.
Did you leverage AI to write your speech at all?
The MC went up to like my friend and he's like, who's this guy? Like, he could MC. And I'm like, oh, such a nice compliment.
Welcome to Wedding Wednesday, the podcast that's about to spill all the tea on what it's like to plan a wedding from the bride's perspective. I'm creating the podcast I need to keep me sane and feeling less alone as I plan my own wedding. We're diving deep into the hilarious, messy, and sometimes crazy world of wedding planning and wedding horror stories. Get ready to laugh, cry, and maybe feel a little less alone in this wedding planning madness. Hello. Welcome back to Wedding Wednesday. My name is Adrianna, and today's episode, you are going to hear from somebody who delivered one of the best man speeches I have ever heard. Not to mention that he's also going to talk through how to throw an amazing bachelor party and just be an overall amazing best man. Before we dive into all of that good stuff, I'm going to ask you to please rate, review, and subscribe because it really does help our podcast grow. And with that, let's say hello to our guest today. Hi, Patrik. Welcome to Wedding Wednesday.
Hey, Adrianna. Thanks for having me.
Of course. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I was very much looking forward to today ever since you invited me on the show. So just happy to finally be here.
I'm super flattered. I mean, you delivered an amazing best man speech at your best friend's wedding.
Thank you.
And when we were just talking about it, like with our friends, it was a no-brainer. I had to have you on the podcast to talk through how you did that because you had no notes. You remembered the whole thing by heart. So maybe to kick things off, tell us at first, how did your best friend ask you to be the best man?
So essentially my best friend proposed to his fiance when they were on a trip in France. He texted me immediately after, and then when they got back, I kind of knew they were going to start to get into, the planning phase and things like that. And then eventually he kind of just texted me to the side and said, hey, do you want to hang out for dinner tonight? My fiance's out, just you and me. And I kind of had a feeling he was going to ask me something. At first, I didn't want to assume. So I was like, okay, he'll ask me to be part of like the groomsmen and stuff like that. But then when I got there, like as soon as I came through the door, he was like, I need to ask you something. Like, do you want to be my best man? And I was like, of course.
That is so cute. I mean, had you guys always talked about being each other's best man growing up?
Not really. That's the thing. Like we barely talked even about like just like what we would do if we would get married one day. Like I knew he wanted to get married to his then girlfriend, but other than that, we never really talked about it. So it came as a surprise in the sense that like, it wasn't a conversation that came up, but at the same time, it felt natural because I know that if I was in his shoes, like he would be my go-to pick as well. So,
It was only natural.
Exactly.
Did your mind immediately go to, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to say a speech?
It actually went to that before he even asked me.
Okay.
Like I even joked about it with him like the day or two after he got back from France, and he had announced like, hey, we're getting married and this and that, we're thinking about dates, and I started joking with him and stuff like before he had even thought about it, where I'm like, oh well, like I got plenty of ideas for a speech, like can I speak at your wedding? He was like yeah, if you want, trying to keep it low key but fully knowing he wanted to ask me. But no, honestly, when he actually did just ask me like, hey, do you want to be my best man, I was just overjoyed that he thought of me for that day. I think for a lot of people it's kind of like potentially the best day of their lives, and so to be a part of that in such a big capacity was, I think, more what I was thinking about than the speech at the time.
Okay. Had you ever done public speaking before?
Quite a bit. I mean, above and beyond just like regular stuff in like elementary school and high school, I did study communications, so you do kind of have to do a lot of more oral presentations and things in more of like a TV setting or a film setting where they kind of prepare you for that if ever you do want to do something like that. So it's definitely something I've had practice with for sure.
Okay. So then when it came to like starting to think about creating the speech, where did your mind go first?
Funnily enough, to a quote from a movie that I knew I wanted to include in the speech itself. For context, my friend's a huge fan of Jurassic Park. It's his favorite movie. And, me and him do a lot of references to pop culture and things like that. That's kind of how we communicate. So I'm like, okay, no matter what goes in this speech, I need to end it with that classic Jeff Goldblum quote where he goes, life finds a way. And so like that kind of became my sort of like guiding line for the rest of the speech. Like no matter what would happen with it, I was like, okay, this is where I start. And then after that, stuff kind of unraveled progressively, but that was really like the starting point and the first thing that came to mind when I thought about it.
I love that you felt immediate excitement over the speech and not absolute fear.
I mean, I'm sure it was buried down there somewhere, like, and I'm sure we'll talk about it after. It did pop up at some point in the process, but no, I think it was more just joy and excitement, like you say, to just be able to share this with someone and kind of get to crafting of like, oh, okay, what can I put in this? Like, what am I gonna say? Like, what am I gonna shout out and stuff like that? It honestly, the process of the whole speech was just really fun to me. It was a good time.
It's really nice to see because not everybody reacts that way.
No.
And it's normal. Like not everybody is naturally feeling confident to speak in front of a crowd. It's very nerve-wracking, even just oral presentations like you were saying growing up. I'm sure you had a few that you were like, oh my gosh, this was so challenging or difficult, where you would fear that. Even for myself, and now I have a podcast. Like I don't know how
public speaking every week.
Yeah, every week public. Well, yeah, I guess you could say that that's the case, but still, like it's. I guess it comes from partly the comfort comes from partly being like wanting to do the thing.
Yeah.
Not so much feeling obligated.
For sure.
Right.
But the nerves are still there, right? Like, as much as I say, like, I had a lot of fun doing this and a lot of excitement, like, at the back of my mind and in my stomach as well, like, there was still that sort of, like, knot that you're, like, you're going to be talking in front of, like, 200 people. Like, you can't mess this up. Like, this is a big moment and stuff like that. So, like, that doesn't go away.
Yeah.
Like, there's a way of kind of, like, controlling it, I guess, and then, getting to the moment and once again controlling that. But it's that nervousness and that anxiety is still somewhere around, no matter how much public speaking you've done.
And that's fair. Have you ever seen a speech go horribly wrong at a wedding?
I wouldn't say horribly wrong. I mean, I've definitely seen like speeches that are better than others, but I've been lucky enough to go to weddings where no matter who was the best man or the maid of honor, they always had like something just really like cute or profound or just interesting to say about like the bride and or the groom. I've definitely heard some speeches where I'm like, okay, maybe this is a little long, or like maybe you're sticking too much on this subject and whatever. But I mean, at the end of the day, every time I would talk with the bride and groom, they'd be like, oh, we loved it. It was fantastic. Like, wouldn't change a thing. And so really that's kind of the important part, right? It's not for me as a guest. It's for them. It's their day.
How early did you start writing the speech?
So the wedding was in October last year, so October 2024. I would say I started like a rough outline probably in the spring. Like not actually writing out what I was gonna say or what I thought I was gonna say and where I was gonna go, but more so kind of like with the Jurassic Park thing where I'm like, okay, what needs to be in there, or what do I think has to be in there? Absolutely. So I would have like a notes tab on my phone just ready to be opened at any time and just throwing in like, okay, I should mention this, or like, ooh, this story when we were young and whatever, and then like slowly it would form. But I'd say a good like 6 to 8 months before I was starting kind of the process of getting into it.
Right. That makes sense. So you were, inspiration would strike and you would write it in your notes.
Exactly. I would have a space for it if ever like I'd be, I don't know, like walking somewhere, or I'm at in a bar, or like even I'm just at work on like a break and I'm just like, oh wait, that would be good. Just write it down. Like even if it's like 2 or 3 keywords, something to remind yourself of like, this is a good idea, don't forget it. Because if you just tell yourself, oh, I'm going to remember it, like 2 months are going to go by and you're not going to remember what your great thought was for the speech.
That is so true.
Yeah.
When did you sit down to like seriously write it?
I think it was more towards the middle of summer, I want to say. Funnily enough, after I was kind of done planning most of the bachelor party and everything was like kind of set, like that felt like the moment where I was like, okay, next step, speech. So I think it was somewhere around like June or July of that same year where I was like really, okay, let me get a text down, like a first draft.
You had your first draft. Did you run it past your parents first?
I ran it by no one.
Okay.
I did want to practice it with someone who coincidentally was also the best man at their wedding. Where we're like, hey, we're gonna go like on a walk during our lunch breaks and we'll practice the speeches, and that ended up like falling through. It didn't happen. I would like, if ever I wasn't sure of anything, I would kind of like ask some of my friends who knew him to be like, hey, like I'm gonna put this in there. Like I wouldn't ask them for advice, but I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna say this thing, and then I would try and gauge their reaction to see like, like oh yeah, that's really good, that's funny, or if they'd be like, oh,
Mm.
maybe you don't put that in there,
Mm. Did you get any reactions like that?
Mostly laughs, because I think like the stuff that I was kind of pushing towards them was more so just like, oh, I'm gonna put this reference in there, he's gonna love it, or like, oh, I'm gonna talk about this moment, he's gonna love it, and they'd be like, oh yeah, that's a really good idea. And it didn't all make it in the end, but I was able to kind of gauge like the crowd reaction in advance by doing that a
That's
little
a good
bit.
idea. Very
Yeah.
smart idea. So you didn't ever really run your entire speech past anyone before?
No.
Okay.
No. But I think because I wrote it out so early, you kind of end up running it by different iterations of yourself as time goes on. Like the first draft that I ended up writing, that first time in like midsummer, a month or two later, when I like look back at that first draft where I think I got to like 4 drafts at the end, where the bulk of it ended up staying the same, but there was still a lot of stuff that ended up like moving or like moving out or coming back in. And then looking back at that first draft, like whatever mindset I was in at the time, I'm like, ooh, okay, maybe that's not what we go with, and maybe we go a different direction. And so like there was still a lot of thought process of self-reflecting, basically, of kind of trying to figure out where I want to go with this and where it needs to be for the public, I guess, or the people who are going to be there.
Such a good idea, though, to run snippets of it past certain people
Yeah.
just to gauge their reaction, like you said, without giving away the whole speech. So it ended up being a surprise for everybody
Yeah.
on the day, which is really nice.
Yeah.
How did you know what kind of stories to choose and pick for the speech?
So it was kind of like a funnel process at first, like I was mentioning the first draft, where it's just, okay, put what are all of like the sort of references that we make that I want to talk about, what are all of like the life moments we share that I want to talk about, like what do I want to say about his, like the bride as well, and sort of from there you kind of like look at those and you end up trying to sprinkle a bit of everything in there, because I didn't want it to be like too much of just like, okay, like inside jokes and references that only we're going to get. I also didn't want it to just be our life story from growing up. I also didn't want it to just be about like either just the groom or just the bride. Like I had to figure I had to talk about both of them, mainly the groom for sure, but still throw some stuff in for his wife. So it was really that. It was just trying to sprinkle in as much diversity as possible based on all of the little things that I had brought up in those drafts and in those notes.
I love that you also integrated quite a bit of your speech for the bride. It wasn't just about the groom. What was your thought process behind what you were going to include for the bride?
So that's probably the section too that changed the most, because I do have like a lot of inside jokes with the bride and a lot of mannerisms when we hang out and things like that. And so my thought process was, okay, I want to make her and everyone else understand that, like, okay, yes, I'm making a speech for the groom, but it's just as much her day as his. She's just as important as him in this scenario. So how can I include her as much as possible? And it started with, I'll be honest, it started with way too many inside jokes. And then when I was rereading it, I'm like, no one's going to find this funny. If anything, people might find this a little insulting.
Okay,
So I was like,
wow.
ooh, okay. Like because we like to roast each other is kind of like our love language. And I'm like, okay, but people don't know that. They're just going to think I'm roasting this poor girl on her wedding day.
Yeah,
like, I can't do that. So I ended up trimming that down to, basically what is she going to think that I'm going to say, and how can I subvert her expectations? Because that was the other thing too during this whole process. If I can go on a quick tangent, I was telling them like every month, like, I'm gonna put this in the speech, oh, and then I'm gonna put this, but like some of it was a little like far-fetched of like, he's not gonna put that in the speech, right? But
So you were throwing them off the whole time.
100%.
I love that.
I even opened my speech with that too, where I kind of ad-libbed a little bit where I kind of looked at them and was like, hey, you guys ready? And like they were like, I don't know. I was like, you guys look really scared. And then kind of told that story to the crowd of how I had like sprinkled little nuggets of information throughout like the prior months to get them, you know, to throw them off the scent, basically. But then what I realized was, okay, if I just go in with my usual sort of like roasty nature of like talking about her, like, she's gonna know. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna start with like one line that's gonna make people think that that's what I'm gonna do, and then I'm just gonna bombard her with compliments and everything that I love about her, basically. And
So smart.
that's what ended up happening. And I had used a line from, I think it was The Office or something like that, where one of the characters says like, oh, I would never say this to her face, and then proceeds to like compliment the person. So I kind of went with that because that was the one inside between me and her that I kept. And I was like, okay, got to throw something in there for her. And then after, it was basically just like, you know, here are all the reasons why you're the perfect person for, you know, my best friend, and why I think you're a wonderful human being. So
that's so sweet. I love that. It's such a good idea to like step out of what you typically do and make it, you really personalized it at the end of the day without almost alienating the crowd.
Yeah.
Really key there for sure. How long was your speech?
I can't remember the exact final timing, because I think I probably spoke a little faster versus when I was practicing. I think it came out to between 4 and 5 minutes.
And you feel as though 4 to 5 minutes is a good amount of time for a speech?
I think it's a good sweet spot, especially if you're the only person speaking within a speech, because I have seen like people where it was like, oh, there's no best man, like it's just for groomsmen and they're all going to be part of the speech. So I think there's like more liberty afforded there. But if I try and think back to like the speeches that I loved from the weddings that I went to, the best ones were like around that 5 minute mark, like just enough to have substance, but not too much that it starts dragging on. Because you know, you're planning a wedding, you know what's happening. There's a lot that goes into the day, so like you're a part of it, and it's good if you remain a part of it.
Right. Real talk, Patrik.
Yes.
Did you leverage AI to write your speech at all?
Nope.
Really?
0%.
Good for you.
I'm I don't use AI much in my daily life anyways, or in, you know, my work life either. And there's just something that would have felt disingenuous to me about using that to write this speech in particular. Like I think for a lot of people it can definitely be like a cool tool to like organize, and so I'm not here to say like, hey, don't use AI, that's a bad idea. If it works for you, cool. But for me, it just didn't feel like it made sense.
That makes sense, just knowing you, because you are such a creative person. You also work with content all the time, so you know how to write something that's going to stick. So I totally understand what you're saying. I do think AI can be helpful for somebody to, like you said, organize their ideas or like put together like an outline if they've never written something like this before. But I love that in your case, you didn't leverage that, and it goes to show how much you really cared to make this your own and present this in a way that like pulled at the heartstrings for everybody in the room.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I wanted to know as well, how did you manage to remember the entire speech without a piece of paper or looking at your phone or anything like that?
Yeah. Honestly, it's a very short answer. It's once I knew I had at least close enough to a final draft where I was like, hey, I can say this. I would practice it once in the car every morning driving to work, and once in the car driving back from work. And so I would basically do it twice a day, like turn my radio off, turn the volume off, and just like do it to myself as I was driving. And then like I was able to practice, you know, kind of like remembering the things I wanted to say when I wanted to say them, but then like the intonation, the flow, and, you know, also trying to anticipate as much as possible, like, you know, either crowd reactions or things like that, which I ended up getting wrong completely. I didn't know when the crowd was going to react in the end, but yeah, so twice a day for like probably a good month or two.
Wow.
And so, you know, and it starts with like before the car, obviously, like you're reading it and you're putting it down and you're reading it. But then once I felt like I knew it by heart, then it would be just twice a day in the car every day.
Smart. At what point did the nerves start to hit about having to deliver the speech without your paper?
They hit when on the wedding day. I didn't know when I was gonna like do the speech. I also didn't know how many people were speaking. Like I knew me and the maid of honor. I thought like, their parents were going to say something or anyone. It turns out it was just us. So
Wow.
I didn't know that until 15 minutes before my speech when they started bringing out like the main meals, where the MC came up to me and he's like, oh, hey, where's the best man? Like, oh, I'm right here. He's like, okay, maid of honor is going to go up to her speech. You're next after her. And it just so happened that the bride was next to me and she was like, no, she doesn't want to go first. So he's like, okay, cool. You're going first. You're up in 15 minutes. And then that's when I was like,
oh no,
okay, it's now. Like, this is the moment. And so that's when like the nerves started to settle in, where I was like, okay, just got to breathe, go sit at my table and kind of wait for it. And just like, no one talk to me. I got to be in the zone. So it was really just those 15 minutes prior to the speech that it really hit me.
Did the nerves melt away when you started to deliver?
100%, yeah. It kind of helped that like the beginning of my speech was a little more impromptu. Like it was stuff that I had written down that I was ready to deliver, but I made it feel more like a conversation, like, because it helped that I was speaking first too, because I ended up thanking everyone, kind of thing, like thanking the bride and groom for allowing us to be here, the groomsmen, the bridesmaids. I also gave like a shout out to the officiant, who was my best friend's cousin, as well as the maid of honor, and I feel like that helped my nerves melt away and also kind of put the crowd at ease, because it almost felt like it wasn't part of the speech. It almost just felt like, oh, okay, hey, there's a dude with a microphone. Here's another part of the evening. And then when I was able to kind of go into it, I was like, okay, I'm good. Like I'm cool, calm, and collected, and I'm ready to just talk as if I was back in my car.
Did you have a backup plan for if, God forbid, you had fumbled mid-speech?
I didn't.
Okay, so
I
I
had my phone in my pocket, but like
Okay.
I didn't have the app open with my notes or anything. Like I was just I just felt like if I give myself that fallback, it's going to mentally prime me to have that fallback and then potentially use it. So I was like, if I just go all in, I have nothing to fall back to. I have to deliver it. So that was kind of my thinking.
It sounds like the maid of honor was also quite nervous to deliver her speech.
Yeah, I mean, but the maid of honor speech was fantastic though as well. I mean,
Talk through the difference.
Have you heard both?
I didn't
can't
hear her
remember.
speech.
Okay.
No, I just heard your speech.
It was really good. Although I do feel bad for having gone first now, because she came up to me after and she was like, "You stressed me out by doing that." I'm like, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." Which also then after that, like she gave her speech, and I'm like, "Why were you stressed? That was so beautiful." Like she had an amazing speech. It's funny because I feel like we definitely hit similar chords in what we were trying to accomplish. Like there was a lot of like for her, there was a lot of for him, a lot of like for everyone as well. Like at the end of the day, the only difference was that like sure she had notes, but like what I was telling her too after her speech, I'm like, when people think back to this day, they're not going to remember the notes. They're going to remember what you said. And even more so, that's what the bride's going to remember, is what you put in the speech. And it's funny because she even used that to her advantage to take a jab at me at the beginning of it, which I thought was brilliant. Where she had said something along the lines of, I'm not going to be like Patrik. I had to write mine down. So, I might not be as charismatic, but maybe I'll be a little better prepared. And I was like, oh, okay. Like it was really good. It was just everything she wrote down was just phenomenal. And I could see it in the bride's face too. Like she was, crying and happy tears and just was wonderful.
What was your favorite memory from delivering your speech?
I remember a specific line I said. Like there's a few lines that got some reactions from the crowd, which I thought was cool. One in particular that I wasn't gonna put in, and then as I was talking, it just kind of came out, and I'm so glad it ended up coming out because it was perfect. But the moment that I think I liked the most was at some point I was talking about how charismatic my friend is and how he's always there for the people around him, and he's great to talk to. So I went on this sort of like enumeration of like, if you need someone to tell you a story, he's there. If you need someone to talk to, he's there, blah, blah, blah. And I got to the last one where it was, if you need somebody to tell you which actor from a movie you've never seen is in another movie you've never seen, he's there. And like, he's a huge film buff. So like everyone in the room could relate to that by talking to him. But the moment I knew that landed was when I like looked at his parents' table and both of his parents were dying of laughter.
Oh my
and I was
God.
like, okay, so that was good. I'm glad I threw that in there. And I think there's also like pictures from the wedding where you can see me like talking on the mic and you see them blurry in the background laughing at that moment. And I think that would be my favorite. It's just, it's so memorable to me.
Tell me about the feedback you got as well.
I mean, I don't know. When you're kind of like delivering the speech, you don't know like how it's going to go, how people react. You hear the crowd, and then like a few people came up to me. Obviously, like the bride and the groom, we hugged and whatever after, where it was, you know, it was a nice moment. But then like my parents were in the room too, which was nice. So you know, they came up and congratulated me, his parents as well. But then you know, I would go to random tables like throughout the night and stuff, and they would also kind of, you know, say, "Oh, great speech," whatever. And I think a part of me was also like, "Oh, but like maybe they're just saying it to like, you know, be nice and whatever." But when I knew that like it had really hit was when a few of the vendors came up to me.
Wow.
And like the staff, like the MC went up to like my friend, and he's like, "Who is this guy? Like he could MC." And I'm like, "Oh, that's such a nice compliment to hear from like a man who is public speaking for 4 hours on that day." And there was even like some lady at the photo booth who, you know, we were coming in to do a shoot, and she's like, "Oh, you're the best man. Like, loved your speech." And I'm like, "Okay." Because like they see weddings every day, right? So like they don't have to say anything. If anything, like they're just, "Hey, I'm in my own world. I'm here, you know, make my money. I'm gonna leave."
Yeah.
So the fact that they give you that compliment and they take the time to do so was probably the best feedback I received.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, okay, it was good."
It was, yeah. That means a lot when a vendor goes out of their way to say something. That is for sure. I mean, you're always behind the camera, even at your job. Would you ever consider being in front of the camera?
I mean, I guess sometimes, like I do it when I want to, or when I get invited onto a podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely think about it sometimes. It'd be cool to do it a little more, either professionally or in my personal life as well. Maybe one day.
Maybe one day. What is one thing that you should avoid altogether about putting in a speech, a best man speech?
Honestly, kind of what I was talking about before about like the inside jokes. Like it's good to have some. Don't make the entire speech just inside jokes between you and one of the people there. And also in the same vein of ideas, don't just like roast one of the people while you're there. Like it seems funny, and the idea is maybe like the dynamic that you have, but it can sometimes not come off that way when you're giving the speech, because you know, there's maybe 2 people in the room that get it, but then there's 150 others that are like, "Why did he say that?"
Right.
So I would say being careful about that. Being selective, I guess. Pick your moments for when you want to throw those in.
Smart. Very smart.
Yeah.
You said earlier that you also planned the bachelor party.
I did.
How did you begin planning the bachelor party? Was your best friend completely surprised?
Yes, and he asked to be surprised too.
Okay.
So I feel like that was always step 1 to me, is like, okay, like ask him, what does he want? And basically he had like a couple rules of like, you know, like absolutely know this and know this, but like other than that, it's like, "Hey, I want, you know, like these people here." And he gave me a list, and he's like, "I'm good with whatever you want to do," which is simultaneously the best thing to hear and also the worst, because then like you have no like sandbox to play in and draw in. You just have like the world is your oyster. You can do whatever you want with it, but that's also scary because it's like, what do I want to do? What's the best thing to do right now? So I would say like the bachelor party was more stressful than the speech. Honestly.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, tell us like that feeling that first came of stress, because your best friend said like the list, but like you decide.
Yeah.
How did you like unpack that stress and like turn it into something amazing for your best friend?
It was rough, honestly, because like I don't think, unless you've done it before, like you have no idea what you're doing. You kind of have a general idea of like, okay, I've been to a bachelor party before. I think it's like this, but like going to one and organizing one are 2 very different things. So for me, my mind went to, okay, guest list. And once I had the guest list, which was, you know, a good 12, 13 people, I was like, what are we going to do with this? Because like there were people, most of the people were in Quebec, but there were 2 people that were in France that were coming for the wedding, that he was like, "Listen, maybe they can't make it, but it would be great if they could." And there was one person who lived in Ottawa. So I was like, okay. At first, like you think kind of like big picture, like, oh, like destination, like we're going to go to like Vegas, or we're going to go to, you know, Atlantic City or Maine or whatever, even Europe. And then like as the reality sets in of like you have to coordinate with 13 of these people, some of them in different countries and stuff, I was like, okay, hold on. I don't think this is going to work. So I was like, I need to simplify. And then that's from there where I kind of like started recruiting people to help me. So like I said before, his cousin was the officiant, and I was like, hey, you've done a bachelor party before. I need some help. And his brother-in-law was also one of the groomsmen. So I was like, okay, hey, like I need some ideas here. I need some help. Because honestly, I think that was one of my biggest mistakes at first was trying to consult as many people as possible to try and like get ideas, but then everyone's either not answering or saying different things. So I'm like, ooh, I need a core team to like help me with this.
That's smart.
So
the core four.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, your core four. So what did you plan in the end with the help of your core four?
So we ended up renting a cottage up in a place past Quebec City called Stoneham, which is like a spot on like a ski hill and stuff like that. So our logic was, okay, we're a big group. People coming in from the wedding from different places. Let's do it close, and let's do it close to the wedding. So like the two dudes from France don't have to fly in and leave and then come back.
Very smart.
So we ended up renting a chalet, and we just kind of dispersed and did activities from there.
Okay. And did you have an idea of what kind of activities he wanted to do?
No, because he again didn't tell me. He was just like, here, I have no limitations. You got, whatever you plan, I'm sure I'm gonna love. Which again, super stressful because you're like, what if he doesn't like it? Like, what if he doesn't want to do that?
But he's your best friend, like you know him.
I do know him, and I think that once the nerves kind of pass, you do settle in, and you're like, okay, he's a lot like me. What would I enjoy in this situation? And you kind of like start, doing stuff like that. So like, for example, he's someone who likes sports and very specifically is big into soccer. So I'm like, okay, but like we can't just play soccer. What could we do? And his brother-in-law was like, hey, you can rent like, those like bubble soccer things where you're like in these sort of like inflatable balls and you're just like running into people. He's like, hey, you could rent one of those, and for like 13 people, it would be super cheap. So we looked into it. We're like, perfect. He's going to love that. You find like something that he likes, but with like a fun twist for all of his friends to do. So we're like, okay, we'll do that. And then we're like, okay, we know he probably wants to go to like, a restaurant and maybe go out to like a club after and kind of like get that experience. So we had that lined up. I was like, okay, like he's never been like to like axe throwing and stuff like that. So I'm going to throw that in too. So it ended up being like a mix of like, okay, what do I think he would want to do that he hasn't done yet? And also what would he like just based on the things that he already does and love? And you kind of just throw all that together and, you come up with a mix of things that you're like, okay, we're going to go with this and hopefully it lands.
Did you add any partying in there?
Yes. I mean, the nature of the cottage was kind of fun because you're like, okay, you're in your own space. So like the first night everyone got there, we were there for like a long weekend. So we arrived on a Friday, we left on the Sunday. So Friday night was more like an in-house kind of party. His uncle works as a butcher, so he was able to get us like a bunch of meats and steaks. So we had a huge barbecue, had burgers, and played the classics like beer pong. There was a pool table there as well, and like foosball. So like it was just sort of like a boys' night in kind of thing, and obviously music and alcohol and stuff like that. But there was that, and then the other night we were like, okay, the second night we're gonna do the classic, go out to a club, get a table, get some bottles, go dancing. So we had both of those. Like the Friday night was an in-house party, the Saturday night was like more of a club party.
So a nice balance of like activities, but a little partying, not too much partying out, a little partying in. So it was like a nice mix of everything.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
What's the craziest thing that happened on that weekend that you're allowed to share?
Honestly, everything was fairly tame, I want to say, within bachelor party standards, Nothing, I wouldn't say anything really crazy happened. I guess other than like the fact that I had like one rule for the weekend that I kept telling everyone, and I was like, okay, guys, no matter what happens, we're watching him at all times as he's consuming alcohol. Like I want him to remember this night. No one let him black out. And then funnily enough, the same night I said that to everyone, I'm the one who blacked out.
Patrik, I'm dead. That's so funny.
And then we kind of joked about that after, where I was like, I did it for you, man. Like I'm doing this for you. But I mean, other than that, like nothing really crazy or wild, but there was just a lot of like really cool and fun moments. Like for example, when we went to like the restaurant, which ended up being right above the club, which was perfect for
convenient.
us, because they were owned by the same people. Sitting next to us at the table was a bachelorette party. So we were like,
Mm.
oh, well, of course. And the DJ was like shouting both of us out all night and stuff like that. And it ended up being a cool time. And then when we went to the club downstairs, we have a booth, we're dancing, we're doing our stuff. And then one of my friends sees like the bachelorette, and he's like, hey, like you guys here, you got a booth, whatever. Like, no, like a bunch of our friends left. I'm like, oh, well, like that sucks. Like, come party with us, So like we kind of like combined our parties and just ended up having a good time, dancing, drinking, chatting, and it was just a fun moment, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm like the spontaneity of it all
Yeah.
is what makes these weekends fun. Of course, you have some structure in there where you have those planned activities, but like the silly goofiness of it all that comes out from those activities is what always typically ends up being what makes the event what it is, right?
Exactly.
Any crazy stories about the wedding in particular? Like, what's your best memory from the wedding day?
Oh man, there's so many. I really love that day so much. It was like would no joke was one of the best days of my life,
Wow.
like for sure. But I think my favorite moment was obviously like we went through all like the wedding rehearsal and like okay, like we're gonna walk up the aisle, we're gonna do this. At this point, this person's gonna talk and whatnot, and you're kind of doing that the day before. You're like, okay, like this is easy, it's fine. But then like being there on the actual like in the actual moment and like having them kind of like look into each other's eyes and like say what they had to say and go through the process. I was obviously had my best friend's back to me, so I only like saw his wife basically. And just kind of like the way like she was looking at him, where I was like, oh, that's just pure love. Like I don't think I've ever seen that look in someone's eyes as deeply as that. So I would say that's probably my favorite moment. Like that was the moment where I got choked up at the wedding, where I was like, whoa, what is going on? Yeah.
You mentioned also that the party itself was really fun.
Yeah.
What would you say made the party so fun?
I think just like the pacing of the evening. And I guess that kind of comes back to, the MC and the DJ and how like they're kind of doing their own thing and planning stuff out. But it just felt like once the ceremony was going, like everything just flowed naturally. There was no like dead space. Like I feel like I've been to like weddings where like maybe the reception, you're like, oh, okay, like when's the food getting here? Like, oh, the bar's not open yet, or like something happens during the night where you're like, all right, like we're kind of just sitting here, nothing happens. It just felt like everyone had something to do at all times that night. Whether it be just like chatting around food, dancing, taking pictures at like the photo booth, broke out into like a limbo contest at some point, which was funny. But it was just that like one moment after the other. So like you were just always stimulated. So it made time fly by. And then like 2 a.m. rolls around and you're like, what happened?
Where did the evening go?
Yeah.
Wow. The flow is so hard to nail.
It is. Very difficult.
It's so hard to nail. And I think that the couple plays a huge role in ensuring the flow goes well for sure. But let's say you plan like every 15 to 30 minutes of your entire evening. If like the kitchen is off or the MC is off, there's nothing you can do.
No.
But it's paired with like the fact that you also need to carefully choose like where you're going to do your wedding and like who's going to MC your wedding, because those things do affect the flow at the end of the day. So although it's like out of the couple's control to some extent, I guess you could definitely do your due diligence to ensure that the flow is like A1, but it's hard. Like it's easier said than done, let me tell you.
You do your best at the end of the day,
do your best,
right? Because there's so many things that you plan for and that inevitably are like, okay, well now it's out of my control.
Yeah.
And the best thing you can do is enjoy every moment of it, even when there is that downtime and whatever. Like you find a way to make the most of it and have a good time.
Yeah.
So, but like you say, it's difficult. You never know how things are going to unfold with
You
that
really
many
don't.
people in a room. Like it's, gets crazy.
It does. Do you know at all by chance like what the couple might have done to ensure that the flow went so well? Just by chance, if you know.
I think they just got lucky with the venue and the people that were there catering with them and the MC. I think the relationship they had with them really helped. Like, I think they had kind of known them a bit, or they had been to weddings where they were also there. And so I think for them, it was like they saw how those other weddings went, and it was like, okay, we want that. We need that at our wedding to give ourselves the best chance of having that, you know, perfect flow of everything. And yeah, to me, that's what helped the most. Like the maître d'hôte at that night was just insanely good. Like she was on the ball, making sure everything was going out at the right time and doing things. It looked stressful watching her run around and place people, but it really elevated the night to like new heights.
For sure. Pat, I want to give the audience a best man speech toolkit.
Let's go for
it. Are you ready? So
absolutely.
If you had to put together a practical quote unquote cheat sheet for the audience to walk away with, what would be the 3 things every speech should include?
Okay, so number 1, at least a few personal anecdotes. You want it to be, you know, personal. There's a reason you were chosen to be that person and to speak at this wedding. It's good if the crowd knows that, because not everyone knows you, and it would be, you know, good for them to understand what that relationship is and sort of like where you're coming from and how you got to this point. So, you know, having some of that personality in it definitely helps. That would be number 1. Number 2, you know, definitely throw in some inside jokes and stuff like that. Like, I know I said before, like, hey, like, not too much and whatever, but, you know, at the end of the day, like, you're having a connection in a moment with the bride and or the groom. So, like, maximize that to as much as you can without, you know, being too much of just you and them. And then the third thing, which I would say is, you know, do have some moments for the crowd. Do have some moments for the other people that are there. Be it as simple as just thanking people for being there, or shouting out the parents, or, you know, throwing something in there that everyone's going to be able to relate to and have a good time with, you know. I feel like if you kind of follow all those 3 things, you'll end up with a speech that does cater for everyone, even if it is for the bride and or the groom.
You touched on this earlier, but just to sum it up, 3 things to leave out of a speech.
Honestly, it's anything in excess. If I can kind of just take a look at almost the same things I just told you, but like, don't go too far into them. I also would, I guess, first one, leave out like the sort of like playful insults and stuff like that. Like, really don't go too far into that. Like, I've been to a wedding where like the speech was fine, but like the groom was just getting roasted for 5 minutes, and I'm like, all right, like, can we move on here? Poor dude. Like, it's his wedding too, you know? So like, don't go too deep into that. Don't go too deep into, you know, like the inside jokes and stuff like that, especially stuff that is completely unrelatable to everyone. Like, if you can find things that are especially relatable to the both of you that you'll understand, but that no one else is going to get, it's like, okay, maybe like a little too much. And then third thing, like, don't get too personal about yourself either. Like, it's not your day, it's not your speech, it's not your moment. Like, you are there as like a conduit of the wedding and of the moment, and you know, you're trying to elevate that day, but it's not the best man show. It's not, you know, I forgot the name, not the bridesmaid, the
Maid of honor.
Maid of honor, thank you. Was blanking on the word maid. It's not the maid of honor show. It's you know, everyone's moment. It's the bride and groom's moment. So it's not time for you to, you know, try and entertain everyone for the sake of entertaining them.
Well said. 2 hacks for remembering your speech without a paper.
Write it down, first of all, because I've also been to weddings where the person didn't write their speech down, or only wrote bits down and then got up there and was so nervous that they didn't know what to do. Make sure you write it down, and just make sure you practice it. Even if you don't think you're going to stick to everything in the speech, even if you think that, you know, like, I might not say this, I might not say that, like, you know, rehearse it well in advance. Like, don't do like the week before, unless you're really good at public speaking. But even then, like take the proper time to ensure that this is the most prepared you've ever been for public speaking. So yeah, write it down and then practice it as much as possible.
I love that. To add to that, I just thought of one speech that I witnessed where the person was trying to be funny, but they're not a funny person inherently. Like, if people don't tell you in your everyday life, like, oh my gosh, you're so funny.
Yeah.
It's not the time to try and be funny. Like, just stick to something heartfelt as opposed to like trying to be a comedian, I think.
Yeah. And actually, if I can throw another one back into the do nots, don't try to be intentionally funny. With the stuff that you're saying, some stuff will just naturally come off. But I guess it comes back to like, it's not the you show, you know, it's for the bride and for the groom. But yeah, it's not a comedy show. Like, don't put stuff in there that you're like, oh, everyone's gonna laugh at this, everyone's gonna laugh at that. Like, some people might not. Like good for you if it ends up getting a laugh and two. But like all the stuff that I put in that I ended up getting laughs and stuff wasn't necessarily stuff that I was like, oh, and the crowd's gonna laugh here. You know, like I think if you start planning that out too much, it's just not gonna go well.
That's good to know. One thing to do right before you start speaking.
Take a very deep breath and look at the bride and or groom, whoever you wrote the speech about. To me, that's the other thing that I felt like that really grounded me, where I was like, it's just like me and them. I'm doing this for them. Okay, like we're good.
Pat, this was so helpful for teaching the audience on how to create an amazing speech and how to throw an amazing bachelor party. If anybody has any other questions for you directly, where can they connect with you online?
Yeah, I mean, you can always reach out to me on Instagram. My handle is no this is Patrik with underscores between every word and 2 Ks and no C, which is pretty complicated to remember. So if you can't remember that, just reach out to Adrianna and she'll send any questions my way.
We'll also put it up on the screen and we'll link it.
That'll help too.
In the description for sure. Thank you so much for being on Wedding Wednesday. I really appreciate you coming on and chatting with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a fantastic time and just love that I get to be a part of this.
Of course. For anybody who has any crazy wedding horror stories, we'd love to read them here anonymously. You can submit them at hello@weddingwednesdaypod.com. Of course, please rate, review, and subscribe because it really does help our podcast grow. And with that, we will see you in the next episode. Bye for now.